Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Esmeralda. I work for Rödl Partner, and today I would like to share with you a few thoughts about earning with renewable energy, but with a focus on the PPAs. And so we can switch to the first slide, please. And few words about renewable energy subsidies in Europe. So I think all of us, we heard yesterday and also today that subsidies in Europe, their role is decreasing gradually. And a little bit about, few words about history. So if I may say, it all started in 2001 when EU court approved that feed-in tariffs for the wind energy are compatible with the EU law. This was Preußen-Elektro case, and this was the German case. So subsequently, there were several legislative initiatives from the European Commission, and which ended up as in a form of EU directives, and these were absorbed by the EU countries in local manners. So the ways of implementing were different, but basically the core model was introducing feed-in tariffs. The ways of state support were feed-in tariffs, quotas, auctions, green certificates, etc. The next step, let's say, happened at the EU court once again, and it was 2014 when the EU court had to answer if the EU member states are obliged to open up their national renewable subsidy schemes to producers in other countries. From the EU law perspective, quite important issue because of the core question, either this shall be shared among member states or not. And the court, and it was a bit surprisingly, said, no, not yet. Then at 2018, even then, there was a common accord that support schemes are the major drivers for investments in the EU electricity sector. And as you can see, so this was the European Commission which concluded that this is still the major wave. However, since then, there are only 3 years past, but we all know and we see that there have been winds of change during these last years, blowing from the US, from the west of Europe, from the north as well. If you look from the Baltic perspective, and in 2021, a Nordic Baltic developer declares, and of course this is just a quotation and this is not the only one, that subsidies are a bit of sugar coating, but they are not important for financing purposes, let's say, anymore. And here comes the question: what is the current role and need for subsidies in renewable energy now in 2021? And also there are substantive regulatory challenges which were mentioned by the previous speaker this morning. And in particular, on the one side, investments must be facilitated by a predictable regulatory framework that reduces risk for investors and hence the cost of capital. And on the other side, regulatory incentives must be reduced in line with falling technology costs in order to avoid overcompensation and rising energy prices. I would agree with the previous speaker that regulatory challenges are one of the most important ones at the moment. And on the one hand, for let's say for many years, there have been subsidy schemes, and of course on the one hand, these have to be reliable by investors, and there are litigation risks and all the rest. And on the other hand, of course, there must be ways how to reduce these subsidies in legitimate ways, not waiting for the entire life cycles of generators being installed. So if we can move to the next slide. So distributed generation era and self-consumption. It seems that currently we face this era, and it's good times for self-consumption. From the legislative point of view, there are two EU directives, Renewable Energy Directive number 2 and Recast Electricity Directive, and both of them address related issues, and both of them have to be implemented within national laws in 2021. As we all may observe, the speed of adopting relating national measures or national rules actually correlates with the speed of the development of the respective business in the particular country. So even in the Baltics, there are countries which have the rules more or less in place, and this was notwithstanding the implementation deadlines of the directives. And there are situations where businesses are not, the particular renewable energy businesses are not developing that speedily, and therefore there are just first drafts of the laws, and these are only laws. We are still missing bylaws and all the regulatory setup, and it's as I said, this is a major challenge to adapt, to react to this quick technology changing situation, financing situation by the legislative and regulatory measures. But from the business point of view, apart from the base model, which you can see on screen, so for energy self-consumption, there are numerous variations, not yet widespread in the Baltics, but in principle, so there are different options starting from the different ownership models, so owning a generator or leasing it from utility company or another supplier of a plant, etc., and ending up with different types of consumers, tenants grouping, neighbors grouping, so to implement this the most cost-effective model. So if we may proceed to the next slide, please. Yeah, and finally, I reach the aim of this presentation. So it's about the long-term power purchase agreements or corporate power purchase agreement. Here, I would like to separate the private ones and corporate ones. And as it was already mentioned several times yesterday and today, PPAs are seeing strong growth, and today basically these are prerequisite for new renewable energy projects. And since PPAs are almost exclusively linked to new renewable construction, these are therefore strongly also connected to the region's growth in renewable capacity. The base models of those agreements are two. Let's say there are two groups. One is sleeved PPA, where the generator sells power to the corporate, and the utility then sleeves the power through the grid and supplies it to the corporate site. And the second model, it's virtual or synthetic PPA, where generator virtually sells the power that it produces to the corporate for a strike price, and here is a price hedge element. Historically, sleeved model has been more popular in the European countries, in European Union, virtual in the USA. These are long-term agreements. Agreement term basically uses to cover the term or life cycle of a construction of generator or plant. So we are talking about 10 up to 25 years. And motivation for and boost for these type of agreements. First of all, of course, it's price securitization. And I shall also mention that for growing majority or growing number, let's say, probably not majority, but growing number of today's PPA customers, it's important to attribute their power purchases to entirely renewable resources. And also additionally probably to contribute for the construction of the new renewable capacity. Probably in the Baltic countries, you have heard about the recent announcement by the Rail Baltica, where they announced that the energy that will be consumed by the Rail Baltica trains will be 100% renewable energy. I wouldn't agree that the energy they will use, at least I hope that the project will be implemented quite soon. So probably it would be true that 100% of the energy they buy, because of course they will take the energy from the grid. And but definitely also there is motivation for customers, for buyers, due to their ESG reasons, due to the importance of ESG issue. I will not go here anymore, as I see that I'm also running out of time. But actors involved for those base models, usually 3 or 4 actors: lender, owner, producer, buyer, balancing party. For small corporate off-takers, actors involved basically could be also aggregation model users like tenants and neighbors and so on. And also what is worth mentioning, there are blockchain PPAs already and quite interesting models, let's say. And finally, at the very end, 2 important notes. So there are good news on regulatory side. Particularly recast RED II directive requires member states first to remove regulatory and administrative barriers to corporate PPAs. This is good. I'm also observing how it develops. Secondly, it's necessary to recognize guarantees of origin issued by other member states. And thirdly, the directive also clarifies that member states may allow issuing guarantees of origin also by those generators that already receive subsidies, for example, in form of feed-in tariffs. And the last note, it's about virtual or synthetic PPAs. These are quite attractive because these are simpler in contractual terms and thus simpler to be executed, to be followed, to be observed. But as this is a contract for difference, it may be a regulated financial instrument, and accordingly, so basically it's lawyers' work, but for businesses, what's important to remember that being a financial instrument, it means that it may require additional tasks and expenses, for example, such as for MA reporting. On my side, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esmeralda. Very insightful presentation. We will come back shortly with a panel discussion on renewables project opportunities. We will be right back.